United players, staff and fans who've contributed to this programme. You'll be listening to After Munich, How They Rebuilt United, with me, Mark Chapman. The programme was a Made in Manchester production for BBC Radio 5 Live. Up next, it's Flintoff, Savage and the Ping Pong Guy.
On digital, online, smartphone and tablet, this is BBC 5 Live.
The BBC News at 10 o'clock. I'm Jo Critcher. The Transport Secretary says he's ending the contracts with Stagecoach, which runs the East Coast Main Line. Chris Grayling says the company got its numbers wrong after suffering significant losses. An alleged hacker accused of stealing information from US government has won his legal battle against extradition to America. The High Court agreed extraditing Larry Love would be oppressive because of his Asperger's. A self-confessed neo-Nazi has been convicted of planning an attack on a gay pride night at a pub in Cumbria. Ethan Stables, who's 20, was arrested after posting his plans online. Theresa May says she's proud of the NHS after Donald Trump claimed it was going broke and not working. The US president was responding to Democrats pushing for a British-style universal health system. Share prices in the US have dropped by more than 1,100 points in the biggest one-day fall since the financial crisis a decade ago. The Dow Jones Index closed 4.6% lower. And Paul Simon has announced his upcoming tour will be his last. The singer-songwriter, who's 76, says he's too tired to travel anymore. Now the sport, here's Shabnam.
10-man Chelsea have been beaten 4-1 by a spirited Watford tonight. John Southall has been watching at Vicarage Road.
A terrible night for Chelsea and Antonio Conte, down to 10 men, as you say, after 30 minutes when Bakayoko was controversially sent off. 1-0 down after Deeney converted a debatable penalty just before half-time. But the second half was a horror show. When Hazard levelled brilliantly with 8 minutes to go, Chelsea then had hope. They then capitulated. Janmaat, Deulofeu and Pereira finished them off in the space of 7 minutes. Antonio Conte looked stunned and he looked shell-shocked as he stood motionless in his technical area. Can he survive this? It's back-to-back defeats against Bournemouth and Watford, and it's looking bleak, you have to say. It's the manner of the defeats that is so alarming, and the pressure now is immense on the Chelsea manager. Watford 4, Chelsea 1.
John, thank you. Elsewhere, the body which represents referees has defended John Moss's decision to award Tottenham's controversial first penalty against Liverpool yesterday. But the PGMOL says Moss was misguided to ask the fourth official for help using television while deciding. It's understood Leeds will name Barnsley boss Paul Heckingbottom as their new manager within the next 24 hours. He'll replace the sacked Thomas Christiansen. And England scrum half Ben Youngs will miss the rest of the Six Nations with a knee injury. Saracens' Richard Wigglesworth has been called up to replace him.
3, that's a magic number. Yes, it is. It's the magic number.
What does it all mean?
Hello and welcome to Flintoff, Savage and the Ping Pong Guy. That's me, Matthew Syed. More meaty topics. First up, we're going to discuss holding our nerve. Then the times we've been wronged. Remember, you can use the hashtag FredSavSide to suggest future topics. Apologies for our short 2020-style podcast on the phone last week. That won't happen again, I don't think. Oh. I say, looking around the studio. OK, let's get going with this. Harry Kane missed a penalty in a massive match between Liverpool and Spurs at Anfield. Liverpool took the lead 2-1 with a fantastic goal by Salah. They did a close-up of Harry Kane. He closed his eyes. He looked absolutely devastated. A few minutes after that, a few seconds still to go, another penalty for Spurs. The question was, would he take the penalty? He grabbed the ball. He executed it brilliantly. And to me, that demonstrated incredible nerve. And what I wanted to really get into is, have you guys ever experienced an embarrassing, humiliating failure, but then had the bottle to step up again and nail it? Have you ever turned away?
Have you seen him? Have you seen him? Have you seen him? Had the nerve to dress like that? Let's see how he comes back next week. Come back stronger, Robbie. You've had a shocker, but you've got some nerve, son. You've got some nerve.
You've been horrible again.
Come on, Frank Gallagher. It's like Shameless. Now the chance
You've
for
missed-
the
have you
state
missed-
is
have you
not
missed-
Garden of
See, you know
Eden.
what happens, Matthew? Because we've not seen each other 2 weeks. He's missed me that much. He gives as much abuse as he can to make him feel better.
You think
He feels better
this is
about himself.
affection?
It's
You
fine.
think it's affection?
Fine, it's affection.
Oh.
Yeah.
Were you impressed with the bottle of Kane to grab the ball, to take the penalty? I think if he had missed 2 penalties and Spurs had lost all of those points, then the emotional scar tissue would have taken a very, very long time to heal.
Nonsense.
Go on.
Nonsense. How can that be? So this is a guy who has scored the most goals in a calendar year. He's breaking records left, right and centre. To say he would emotionally scar him for missing 2 penalties at Anfield, I think that's nonsense.
Can I ask, I've not seen it.
Yeah.
But did he miss the target or saved?
Save.
He
Poor
went
penalty.
It was a bad
penalty.
Scuffed
Yeah.
it straight into the goalkeeper's hands. A lot of people, I think, felt that it was a terrible penalty, poor execution. But it was the confidence
But
that he showed
don't they
when
say,
he
though,
took the ball.
Matthew, but don't they say, if you fall off a bike, the best thing to do is get back on it?
That's true, but sometimes, you know what people do? They walk away from the bike. You've seen players who've missed penalties and they've lost their nerve. The manager's lost faith in them. They haven't had the sort of assassin's ability to stay on target. I thought Kane showed incredible mental strength and resilience to what he did.
Do you know what he done? Do you know why I think he done it? Do you know why I think he done it? Because he's that powerful on that side.
True.
He's the main man. If he would have been, just say he would have been a substitute or not as influential, or not the Harry Kane who's breaking records left, right and centre, he was maybe in and out the side. If he'd have missed a penalty, then I don't think he'd have taken it again. Because he's that powerful and his performances suggest he is the main man and he's probably the best striker in the world at the minute. He knows, even if he misses the second one, unlucky Harry, at least you had the bottle to take it. So irrespective if he missed that, it would be forgotten tomorrow. It might be headlines, missed 2 penalties, but because of his stature amongst the side and his stature in world football, the right thing to do was get the penalty. I think if he misses it, it doesn't affect him at all.
Really?
Yeah, really.
Have you ever been impressed, Fred,
Really?
with a cricketer, teammate or opponent? They've had a terrible humiliation. I'm not saying the first penalty was as bad as all that, but something has gone badly wrong, and you've seen them get back on the bike to use
I reckon the biggest one we've seen in recent times is Ben Stokes.
Yeah.
T20
After the World Cup.
World Cup final. They need 19 off and over. I'm sorry, but the game's gone. You've won, Get the champagne out, lift the trophy, you're done. All you need to do is hit 3 Yorkers, game's over.
Yep.
He didn't hit any.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, you can watch it and you can listen to him, but that over was shocking. He bottled it. He genuinely bottled it. And everyone's saying afterwards, where's he going to go? His career's over. He's been 10 times better since.
Yes.
We saw his IPL prize go up. He performed in that. He's performed in all cricket he's played in. Would have loved to have had him this winter. But I think, with Harry Kane, what as a penalty taker?
I did take a lot.
But what's acceptable to miss? Is it 1 in 5, 1 in 8, 1 in 10?
That's a good question, I think it's acceptable to miss if you do it the right way. Like when people miss a penalty and try and dink it down the middle, and they miss, then I think that's not acceptable. If they go in, they look great. So I think Harry Kane, all fairness to him, he took it and scored. I've got to say, I'd like to hear from when you held your nerve the most. Mine was, and it's been topical in recent weeks with Mahrez. I know we're not doing a Mahrez situation, but I held my nerve to force the move through to Blackburn Rovers. Yep. You imagine that everybody's against you, your teammates might go against you.
This is because they knew that you wanted to leave the club.
Yeah, and I was being a disgrace to force through a move, which I've admitted in previous podcasts. But you imagine, everybody's saying bad things about you. The local papers, saying he wants to go. You put in the reserve side, 2,500 people turned up at Solihull to watch me perform, banners saying I was this and that. I was anxious. I was sitting at home thinking, I've got to hold my nerve. It'd been easy for me to say, no, I'm going to stay. But because I was that desperate to get what I wanted, I was watching the news, all the time on the it was Sky Sports News, breaking news. Had my move gone through? Had they accepted a bid? Because it was that worrying for me, and it would be easy for me to, because I like Steve Bruce, going to Steve Bruce and saying, do you know what, Steve, I'm going to stay. I've just signed a 4-year contract.
But on the flip side of that, could you not have had a grown-up conversation with Steve Bruce saying, Steve, take the shell suit off? No. Could you not have gone into Steve's...
He's trying to be serious here.
No. Could you not have gone into Steve Bruce and said, Steve, Come on, mate.
This is where I'm at.
I don't. I don't want to be. It's gone now, Steve. Let's do.
Yeah, but you've got to stand from a manager's point of view. I was their best player. I was their best player.
Yeah.
So he wanted to keep me, and
What was he saying to you to try and keep you there? Was he saying?
Yeah, well, I just had a new 4-year contract 6 months before that.
From a Chelsea any day of the week.
I mean, but holding your nerve and everybody's against you, but I believed in it was the right thing to do for my own family. I went about it the wrong way, as I've admitted, but you imagine that.
But you were mentally strong enough when you went on the pitch.
My house was attacked. I had my windows smashed. I had my gates sprayed.
Yeah, but you must have somebody do it windows on speed dial. Always getting done. Oh, he's upset. Oh, what's wrong with you?
Serious, I mean, I'd be serious.
Did anyone back you in the dressing room? Was there anybody who was on your side?
Well, a few of the guys were, but it was. I didn't care what anybody thought of me at the time. Didn't care.
Really?
Didn't care.
So if you could have that time again, would you have gone about it differently? Or what could you have done?
I was shocking in my behaviour, but inevitably, would I do it again? Probably, because I got what I wanted at the end of it. We're seeing situations now with Riyad Mahrez, could have had his dream move. I likened it to. You imagine, this is what I can liken it to hold my nerve. You imagine going to the shop. And it's an analogy, it might be a completely ridiculous analogy, it probably will, because I'm saying it and you're probably having me, and you'll probably laugh, Matthew.
What kind of shop are you going to?
So a Co-op.
I love them.
So go in the Co-op in Prestbury.
I'd get giant chocolate buttons for £1.
Yeah?
No, great shop.
No.
Or I'd get the milk white ones, £1 as well.
Yeah?
I like it when they have the minstrels on.
Kind of Red Bull as well.
Yeah, sometimes that's half price.
Really?
Yes.
My little friend loves that at the minute. Anyway.
We're still in Co-op.
We're still in the Co-op. So I've got everything. Yep. Everything I've dreamed for.
In the Co-op?
Co-op?
Everything you've dreamed of's in the Co-op.
No.
I've always wanted baked beans. I've always wanted
tin tuna.
What you doing about?
I'm going to buy a J-cloth.
Got to take my jacket off and get out of here.
Everything you've ever wanted in Co-op.
I'm getting to a point. Can you leave me be?
It's better be a good point, though.
So, you imagine, I've got, I'm going to get more money at Blackburn. I am going to be closer to my parents, which is a fact. I know they said it was different. Ewood Park was further away from St Andrews. Yeah. But where I lived was closer to Mum and Dad's.
Hang on.
I was going to play for my hero.
Is the Co-op still part of the story?
Co-op's still part there. So you imagine this. I'm sitting at home, I'm anxious. I'm thinking, is it going to happen? I've put all my eggs in one basket. Got them from the Co-op.
Free range.
Yeah,
free range or organic.
It was 6. It wasn't a dozen, it was 6.
Mixed size or large.
Right? Yeah, medium. So I've gone there and I've got my lottery ticket and I've done the 6 numbers, right? You imagine that I've got that ticket and it's in my pocket, and then you're watching the telly on the Saturday night, that ticket comes in, you go to the shop, you get your money, you've won. You've won, your life changes forever.
Yep.
In terms of financially, in terms of everything you've wanted. It was the whole package. And it was amazing. So I believe that decision, holding my nerve on that particular occasion, at the end goal was like, for me, win the lottery, and I had one opportunity to do it, and I took it.
So you faced up to vilification from the fans.
Rightly so.
People coming to you, but the vandalism was
Wrong.
way out of all kilter.
Getting spat at, wrong.
And you had the strength, because you knew that where you were going to end up with was strong for you, was great for your family, and therefore you went through with it.
Held my nerve.
How did you feel when you signed at Birmingham?
From Leicester.
Well, you left Birmingham to go to Blackburn.
Yeah.
So when you signed to Birmingham, was that a big move?
Because
was
Leicester,
that a Co-op moment as well?
No, that was not. That was not my end goal, because that was when I was, what was I, 25. That was not my end goal, because Leicester got relegated. I went to Birmingham. That was
League
not
One or Championship then?
Premier League.
All right.
Premier League, yeah. So 11 years in the Premier League. And
I know that, but Birmingham are up and down, aren't they?
Birmingham were in the Premier League, their first season in the Premier League, but that was not my end goal. You know, it was my end goal was to play. My regret is, although
Birmingham was like going to Spa. Spa and then Co-ops
In terms of size of football clubs, Birmingham's a big football club. Derby County's a big football club. History. Blackburn Rovers, you would say, is not a big football club.
Is that just after all the success they had?
Yeah, Blackburn won the Premier League.
Yeah, but is this just after?
Yeah. And Leicester City, great football club, won the Premier League. So I play for clubs who have won the Premier League, but not when I was there.
Fred, did you ever find a situation, let's take the Ashes, where you captained the team, didn't go as well as you had hoped? A lot of the headlines were very negative. Were there any moments, any doubts, any insecurities that came to the forefront of your mind? You're somebody who often grew under pressure. You found that galvanising. Did you ever have any doubts? Or did you find that when you next took to the field of play, you were like Harry Kane and you said, you know what? I'm going to nail this.
Do you know what? Whatever I do, whether it's sport or anything, I have doubts in everything. And if I'm not doubting myself, I feel I'm doing the wrong job. Mm-hmm. It's like, I doubt myself. I don't mind questioning myself, neither. I question myself constantly. But I'm not bothered about that. It's more the answers. It's like, I'll get through this. Every time I played cricket, I was so nervous. And I was in a position where I'd walk out, and then all of a sudden, it's like, nah, snap out of it. And then sort yourself out. And I don't know about Harry Kane, and you, Rob, and you, Matthew, as well. The reason that you play sport or do something is to be involved in them big moments. Yeah. Even now, if I go to a sporting event, I get a little bit jealous. I don't care what it is. You know, when there's a big moment in a match, like Harry Kane taking the penalty, I want to take that penalty.
Yeah, that nerves, that feels amazing.
See, I'm not sure that I totally feel the same way as you two do. When I had the biggest match in my table tennis career in Sydney, I fell apart. And it was embarrassing. I played much worse in that match than any other match in my entire career. I let my coach down. I let my teammates down. I felt that I'd let my parents down. It was live on television. So table tennis doesn't have the profile of football or cricket. And suddenly I'm in the spotlight, the Olympic Games, once every 4 years. Yeah. And it was horrible. On the bus on the way back.
Is that not amazing?
Oh, it was dreadful, Fred. I just couldn't cope with the pressure. I saw the Union Jacks in the stadium. I knew that this was the culmination of 4 years of hard work, and I genuinely couldn't cope. My hand was shaking a little bit. So think about the touch you need in table tennis, right, when there's spin. And I just couldn't feel the ball. And I was missing by a yard and a half. And my coach, he sort of had a look of pity on his face. My opponent was feeling sorry for me. And I've got to admit, my nerve failed me. And in the bus on the way back to the Olympic Village, I phoned British Airways and said, I want to change my flight to come home tomorrow. I just couldn't cope with it. And when I got home, I tried to avoid my friends. I didn't want to tell them what had happened. I didn't really want to see my parents because they had watched it live on television. And if I'm being completely honest, there was a period in that very dark shadow that was cast after Sydney when I thought of retiring, walking away. Why put yourself through that again?
I was like that after the Ashes 2006-07 and the World Cup afterward. The pedlar was... I struggled looking at people and being around people, and it wasn't because...
That's because you had 15 pints inside you struggled looking at people.
My eyes were everywhere.
Your eyes were everywhere.
No wonder I couldn't do all. And we went to America because I was injured, I had more surgery, and I convinced my employers to let me go to America for warm weather training. And whilst we were there, the pound was 2-1, and it was all nice. And I said to the missus, you know what? Let's just cash in. Let's open a cafe here or something and we'll stay here. I've had enough. Yeah. I don't need this. I was getting a roasting in the papers.
So interesting.
And I said to her, shall we? We had 2 kids then. We're staying on this lovely reserve, a golf place, nice house. So I'll just buy this house. Yeah. And we'll live here. We'll get away from everything. We'll start again. But then, you know what? For that split second, I thought it was a good idea, and I looked at brochures for houses and looked at what I could do. And then, as I started training and getting back into it, I thought, you know what? Yeah. There's not a chance. Yeah. There is not a chance in hell. Because if someone tells me I can't do it, I'm doing it. There's no two ways about it, and I will do it. And then sometimes when I got to the top, I got a little bit bored, to be honest. I got a little bit bored. I didn't enjoy falling, but I enjoyed going back up.
Sorry.
Go on, no, carry on.
Well, I was going to say that emotion of what you were experiencing when you're on that low point, just get away from it. Never have to put yourself in the lion's den again. When I watched Kane grab the ball, I was thinking, oh no, what if it goes wrong? And I started vicariously experiencing what I might feel like in that situation. One slightly trivial story, school play, we did The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe. And I was the Aslan. There was somebody else who was the Wicked Witch. And
I thought you might have been the wardrobe.
The Wicked Witch. So big role. All of our parents are there. We're 11 years old. Forgot her lines. And for the whole of the senior school, she never wanted to put herself under pressure again. She walked away from it and always walked away from pressure. And I think if you have that attitude, you can understand it because humiliation is horrible.
I couldn't put my hand up at school. You know when you're in the class?
Because you didn't know the answers. Oh, no. Robbie, you're crossing a minute. Come on, you crossed that one in. I mean, that was the best cross you've ever made, that.
I didn't put my hands up because I was that nervous. I knew the answers, Freddie. 7 GCSE. I knew the answers, but I would never... Even though I knew the answer, I wouldn't put my hand up in case I was wrong.
Yeah.
I was always the one, and I think my Charlie's very similar to me. Mm-hmm. Now, my eldest boy... I wouldn't put my hand up. I wouldn't get in the school play because I was petrified of speaking in front of people. Still can't do it now. That's why I don't.
You do. I've seen you.
Yeah, but
when you do it, you're brilliant.
But going back last week, holding your nerve, I presented for the first time on TV, on a TV station. I've been having coaching lessons. I'm working hard at it to present because that's what I want to do, and the nerves. When you're in that chair and you've got the count in your ear and you've got to hit times, the nerves were horrific. Mm-hmm. But do you know what? I got such a buzz coming off after presenting it. When you're asking the questions, you're leading it. That buzz I got back there was unbelievable. That made me think, can I do this? Can't I? And I sent Fred the video to show him, and I've had a lot of positivity, which is. Not like what I get positivity.
No, but to be fair to you, you look the part. You look great.
What was the show?
It was called Fan Zone on Premier League TV, which goes all around the world. So
good for you, mate.
It's the Premier League TV, so it was called Fan Zone. So it's like a 606 on TV, and I had Leroy Rosenwar on with me. Yeah, Leroy Rosenwar, you're brilliant, so helpful. And do you know what? This is what you don't. This is why I think in our industry. You should always treat people, the runners, the people who take you places, your fellow pundits, presenters, because I'm led to believe that Leroy knew it was my first one and he's experienced in that show as a pundit. He drove all the way from Bristol for half an hour to be on with me so he could get me through it. And do you know what? You don't forget things like that.
I agree.
And he helped me through it. He was magnificent, all the way from Bristol for half an hour just for me. And he helped me through it. And he said, don't be nervous. And it was amazing.
Did you find, before...
So holding your nerve.
Do you know before it starts, I'd done a little bit of live stuff.
Yeah.
And then you can, like you say, you're all in your ear and your heart's pounding.
And my mouth
and then you
dry.
take in and you think, what am I going to say? I'm not sure if I can ask this question. I'm going to do this or that. But then all of a sudden, as soon as it comes on, you're fine.
Yeah, and it's a buzz. And I'm not that buzz. I get the buzz doing this, but I'm not that buzz, that feeling of Harry Kane scoring that penalty. Because one thing I think when you've played professional sport is that moment of adulation and... You're saying, I think the positives for Harry Kane scoring that penalty second one, you've sprinted away to the corner, he's a hero now, and that adulation of being a hero or getting something right for that moment, it's unbelievable.
I can't be missing out. I can't miss out on things.
No, you can't.
But did you talked about the fear of failure in school where you wouldn't put your hand up.
Yeah.
Why don't you think you felt that fear of failure when you're on a football pitch? Or did you sometimes?
Say that again.
You said that you didn't want to put your hand up. You're worried about being humiliated.
Yeah.
But in football, your nerve was always there for you. You'd take risks. You'd put yourself on the field of play.
It was natural. It was natural.
You never felt any of that on football.
I was nervous walking out. There was times in the first 5 minutes when I couldn't feel me feet. Do you know what I mean?
I'm not going to do it. I'm not saying it. Go on, carry on.
There was times in big games where I'd run out and I was, lethargic. And I couldn't think why, because I'd prepared the right way. I'd been to bed early, slept in separate beds, eaten the right food, hydrated. But everything was right. But in some of the games, you'd go out in the first 5 or 10 minutes, I couldn't move. And that was one thing I built my life on, was energy.
Just taking a step back.
Because of nerves.
What you guys were saying, as parents, a lot of children... They're so afraid of messing up, so afraid of getting the answer wrong, so afraid of forgetting their lines that they don't put themselves in the view of danger. They don't want to take those risks, and so they never really grow. And I think that's a massive problem in our society. I've got a 4 and a 5-year-old. I want them to be courageous. I want them to try things. I want them to face up to challenge. Is there anything that you've done as dads to put your children in a situation where they're prepared to take on the risks? Fred, you take them on all the time. You're doing live shows, live television.
What, my kids?
Yeah.
What?
Any techniques you use to encourage them to have a go?
No, I just, my big thing is you mentioned taking fear of failure away. Because ultimately, with what we do, if we fail, it really does not matter. I'm not doing a job where I save lives. I'm not a surgeon who's performing complex heart operations. If I make a mistake, so I lose someone.
Yeah.
If I forget a line on stage, blow my neck, I'm going to go home.
Yeah.
You know, and then sometimes I think when I was playing cricket and sport, the times I got it wrong, where when I built it up so much, it became more than sport. Australia 2006-07, I got myself into a rut because I believed that this thing I was doing was the world's most important thing. This is the thing that's going to define me as a person. This is the thing that defines us all. And I just lost context.
Yeah.
And if you don't have context to what you're doing,
that describes almost better than I could what I felt. It's everything was on the line in Sydney. Everything. And if something went wrong, that was the end of me as a person. That it was just, it wasn't even worth thinking about. And that's when I couldn't hold the bat and I couldn't strike the ball.
You're talking about, the kids, and I manage my under 12 side with the.
Apparently, they've had. There's a few chats like Savage out.
We got beat again today, 3-1 against the top of the table.
A couple of banners down.
I blame Jonathan Wall, the boss. He tactically got it all wrong once again. Nothing to do with me. But you're talking about the feel of failure. And growing up as kids, I'm sure that we all had it, that in my under 12 side, in my under 14 side, when I was a kid, I was the best player. I'd take all the penalties. I'd take the corners. I'd take the goal kicks. I'd take all the throw-ins because the best player seems to do that. And I just, when my little Freddie's been going through teams, I found that, the same player, usually the best player in the side, will probably take the penalties, take the free kicks. So I've decided with my under 12 side is that if you get fouled for a penalty, you take it.
All right.
Because I want you to feel nerves, I want you to feel failure, and I want you to feel joy.
Yep.
If it's a free kick outside the box, I don't care if you're the left back, if you're the substitutes, come on. If you get fouled for that penalty, you take it. Because I don't want to see the same kid taking the same penalty, because I want all the kids in my under 12 side to feel joy, to feel if he scores a goal, because a left back or a right back might not score in my league. So
how have you reacted if a young kid has taken a penalty, they've missed, they're devastated?
Yammers them.
I blame Jono. Jono, why did you make him take it?
His child.
You fool!
Get him off. Who signed this kid?
Seriously, Jono. No, but listen, it's obviously there's a fine line. I know we've done the debate on youth football, but I just think that's how I feel. And okay, when it goes to 11 aside next year and it becomes more competitive, I might change a little bit. But at this minute in time, I want the kids to feel joy, failure, happiness, all different emotions. How are they going to learn?
It's almost like the biggest risk isn't to try and fail. The real risk is not to try at all.
Right, that's the big thing. If you don't try, why would you look round at being 60 and think, I didn't do this, I didn't do that. I'd sooner fail at a few things.
Brilliant.
But also as well, getting back to nerves, I don't know what you found, my career was different. In the first part of my career, I wasn't particularly well prepared. I'd go out and get hammered. I'd have a few nights out before I played.
Stuff didn't fit you?
Yeah, well, they didn't. My trousers were above my neck. Don't get me started. I think I had the mascot shirt on for years. It was the only one that had fit me. Well, I had about 6 X's on. So, not even Giacomo would fit me then. So, and I found, if I turned up for games not knowing how it's going to go or not feeling prepared, I was very nervous. But if I turn up to something now, knowing that, you know what, I've done everything I can here. Like you said about the Premier League thing you did the other week presenting. Yeah. If you know that, hang on a minute, you turn up, I've worked at this. I've practiced at it, I've worked with someone. Same with the cricket, same with anything you do. If you turn up knowing I've done everything I can here to perform, I reckon the nerves subside a little bit.
Thank you for listening. You can download the podcast for extended versions of all the topics we covered on this week's show at the 5 Live website and all the usual podcast places. Also, all the shows we've done to date available to download there. Use the hashtag FredSavSide to get in touch through the week. If you could leave a review on iTunes and give us a rating, that would be great. We'll be back at the same time next week. But for now, from all of us, goodbye.
Thanks, chaps. Coming up with us tonight, Stagecoach sees its contract to run the East Coast Main Line terminated. The Transport Secretary says the company's run out of cash. So what could this mean for you as a commuter and for use of private funding to run Britain's infrastructure? Financial Times front page tomorrow, Grayling lines up state takeover as East Coast franchise nears collapse. So we'll talk about that. We'll find out why it's last orders for so many of Britain's pubs. And could changes in business rates be to blame? And Alex James joins Steve Hold on the big entertainment stories on Back Row at 11:30.
First for news and the best live sport. This is BBC 5 Live.
Good evening, 10:30 on Monday night. Phil Williams here with you on 5 Live. This is the late news hour.
The main news on 5 Live, Stagecoach has stopped from running the East Coast Main Line.
And in sport, Watford stunned Chelsea with a 4-1 win in the Premier League.
This is BBC 5 Live.
If you think you've had a miserable day, I've just been watching Antonio Conte talk to television. Anyway, more of that with Shabs after the latest BBC News on 5 Live at 10:30. And here's Joe Hornby.
Stagecoach is to have its contract to run the East Coast Main Line rail franchise terminated early. The government says the company is making significant losses and there's no question of a bailout. A British man says he's greatly relieved after the High Court blocked his extradition to the US on hacking charges. Lowry Love, who has Asperger's, is accused of getting into FBI, Army and NASA computers, but judges said sending him to America could bring on severe depression. The EU's chief negotiator Michel Barnier has warned that Britain will face trade barriers if it abandons the custom union. The Brexit Secretary David Davis has confirmed the UK will be leaving it and the single market, but wanted an extremely close relationship with the EU in the long term. And Theresa May has responded to an attack on the NHS by President Trump. She said she was proud of it after he tweeted that it was a system that was going broke and not working. Shabnam Yunus-Jewell has the sport.
Thank you. Watford scored 3 late goals to beat 10-man Chelsea 4-1 in manager Javi Garcia's first home game in charge. Chelsea had Bakayoko sent off after 2 yellow cards in 30 minutes and gave away a penalty soon after, which was scored by Troy Deeney. Hazard equalised late in the second half when Olivier Giroud was brought on to make his debut in blue, but Watford punished the visitors by scoring 3 more, resigning Antonio Conte's side to their second Premier League defeat on the bounce. The body which represents referees has defended John Moss's decision to award Tottenham's controversial first penalty against Liverpool yesterday. But the PGMOL says the ref was misguided to ask the fourth official for help using television while deciding. Harry Kane missed that first spot kick but went on to score a second penalty to level the game 2-2. It's understood Leeds will appoint Barnsley boss Paul Heckingbottom as their new manager within the next 24 hours. That's following the sacking of Thomas Christiansen yesterday. And England scrum half Ben Youngs has been ruled out of the Six Nations with a knee injury. Saracens' Richard Wigglesworth has been called up to replace him.
This is BBC 5 Live on digital, online, smartphone and tablet.
The weather, sleet and snow will spread from the northwest tonight, reaching northwest Wales and northern England later. Frosty, partly cloudy and breezy across the south, lows of -3 degrees.
5 Live Breakfast.
The weather this morning, very cold, although as somebody's pointed out, it's February, which is kind of winter, so what were we expecting?
In a way, it's quite reassuring.
When I got up this morning, I was saying we don't have the heating on in the morning, not at that time of night anyway, and it was so cold, Nikki, I was wearing my coat in the house. I got dressed and then I put my coat on as I pootled around and did all the other stuff that I have to do to get ready for work.
It was at Flintoff.
It was cold as a stepmother's kiss.
Was it?
Where is the coldest place in the country?
We've got a -5 in Catesbridge in Northern Ireland at the moment.
Catesbridge, did you say?
Yes.
Do you know what, Rachel?
What's that then?
It's freezing.
5 Live Breakfast. Back tomorrow from 6.
The Late News Hour
With Phil Williams on 5 Live.
10:33, welcome to Monday night's programme. The government's confirmed tonight Stagecoach will lose the East Coast Main Line franchise after getting into financial difficulties. The Labour Party says this is yet another example of rail privatisation failing to deliver. The Transport Secretary, Chris Grayling, told the Commons the company might still run the line on a short-term, not-for-profit basis.
This is not going to impact on the railway's day-to-day operations. The business will continue to operate as usual, with no impact on services or staff on the East Coast. But it does mean I need to put in place in the very near future a successor arrangement to operate this railway and to end the current contract.
Phil Marsh joins us on this from Rail News. Evening, Phil.
Hello.
Can you just explain to people listening what's happened here?
Stagecoach have run out of money, is the long and the short of it. When they made the bid in conjunction with Virgin, it's a 90% Stagecoach, 10% Virgin joint venture, they made various revenue assumptions that they would increase the amount of passengers, run more trains,